So Anton, we can cut that there, and then I'll count us down for the new episode.
We aren't cutting that dance though. There's no way in hell.
Which dance?
The one yeah, man.
Is there some intro music?
Oh.
No intro music?
We have something that gets added somewhere. I don't know.
Counting us down, folks. Welcome to another Silver Fox edition of Missouri Swagger. Look at Cullen Bunn's head over there. He's got hair on the side of his head for the first time since I've known him.
It's actually brushing out in strange patterns. I have to get it shaved down.
No, it's lovely. It's my favorite thing you've ever done with your head.
You look like $1 million.
Well, thank you.
So I'm Dennis Hopeless.
I'm Cullen Bunn.
I'm Kyle Strahm. And this is Missouri Swagger. Episode 7, maybe? Season 2? Episode 8?
I feel like we should stop numbering them and just call them something. This is episode Panda, because it's all nonsense anyway. It's not like you need to watch these in any kind of order or we talk about anything sensible.
Well, the problem is that the numbering system is in our heads is based on the one that just came out, but we're ahead. So I think it's actually episode 8, but that's episode 6 as of recording. This is the last one that's up. So this is either 8 or 9, but it doesn't matter.
8?
8, I think 8.
There are 7 previous hours of content.
All I know is this is shockingly riveting, guys. Shockingly riveting.
My favorite thing about it was when we don't know the answer to something, and when Anton edits it, he gets to go in and make us look stupid by having that scroll along the bottom that says the real thing or Brexit.
That's your favorite?
It's my favorite because it's not fair because he gets to look it up.
Cullen, what did you do this week?
You're looking at it. I sat right here in front of my computer doing nothing.
Doing nothing?
And
or working hard?
I don't feel like I just got off the phone with my agent a few minutes ago. And he was quizzing me on how much work I've been doing. Mm-hmm. And the answer to that is, I feel like I'm not doing anything. I feel like all I'm doing is busy work. Like I'll come down to my office and I'm like, I gotta clean my office up to get ready for this amazing writing marathon that I'm gonna be doing. And then I clean the office, but I don't do the amazing writing marathon.
When does the marathon have to happen?
Well, it should be happening right now. I should be writing so that when more projects come through, I'm not overwhelmed.
Yeah, well, you just showed your cards. So now when you're like, I'm too busy, we're just going to be like, you're cleaning your office to not write.
I was actually setting up my bookshop.org website. And that seems important because, you got to have your bookshop.org account up to date, don't you?
The nice thing about editing the shows down for clips to put on social media has been that I have something that I can do that isn't writing and doesn't create anxiety, but that I can call work. So I feel like I'm working a lot when really what I'm doing is taking our silly talking heads and editing them into little jokes to entertain our fans. But that's work. It's all work. Cleaning your office is work.
I'm glad you're doing it.
People love
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
We've added a segment to the TikTok. So all of you that are out there that understand TikTok and go to our TikTok, we've added a daily segment called What Are You Drawing Today, Kyle? Where we take old Kyle drawing videos and put them to music. And those
daily,
are quite popular. Daily, it's daily. It's every day. I haven't done today's yet, but I've done all the others.
That sounds like a lot of work, Kyle.
Sounds like it's going to run out fast.
Well, you just got to record your drawing.
Okay, I'll record myself organizing my studio.
Well, also, if you want something specific to show up on if you want to see Kyle draw something specific, below this video you should make suggestions of things Kyle might draw. And if it strikes his fancy, he could pick one. And he could do a drawing that we could throw up on the TikTok. I say that because it will take me 2 minutes, and I'm not the one that has to draw it.
Yeah. That might happen.
years ago when Harrow County was first coming out, Tyler Crook had this big dream. He wanted to do a video of him drawing and, you know, showing what he's working on and then showing him working hard at his desk. And then they wanted to cut to me, and he thought it'd be hilarious if he's working real hard and when they cut to me, I'm sleeping at my desk. He thought that would be really hilarious to show how much work I put in on these projects. He also wanted me, whenever I talked on the video, when I woke up, he wanted me to go, "Cue, cue, cue," like someone from Dukes of Hazzard or something.
Cullen, do you remember 2012?
I vaguely remember that there was a year that was 2012.
Do you remember Dead Times magazine?
Yeah, I remember Dead Times magazine.
So I was cleaning my office, going through a bunch of boxes of comics, and I found Dead Times magazine.
Uh-huh.
And in the back...
Oh, goodness.
Look at young Cullen.
But the reason I kept it, there's this Kyle Strahm and Cullen Bunn. Dennis, you're not in this one.
Probably wasn't at my table.
Yes, this is you.
No.
So
Don't take my Catwoman mask to cons with me.
I'm pretty sure that's the convention where you terrified my child, Kyle.
I never did that. What do you?
The
The
same-
Project Comicon in St. Louis.
I think that's the one where you terrified my kid.
How did I terrify your child?
My son came.
This time.
Yeah, I know. My son came to that convention with me, and I remember because we took pictures of me holding him, and we were standing next to two giant Voltron cosplayers.
How old was he?
So 2000, he'd been 4, maybe.
Hmm.
Maybe 4.
Young.
Yeah, he was young.
Impressionable.
And, he was walking around, and at the front, I was walking with you and Dennis and my son and my wife, and up at the front door, there was a stormtrooper. And he was standing just perfectly still. And you said to my son, "That's just a statue. Go up and say hi to it." And he won't move. But it was really a dude cosplaying. And then when my son walked up to him, the stormtrooper moved, and it terrified him. He was so scared of that creature.
I remember that because his terrified reaction was really funny to us non-parents at the time, and we laughed, and that made it worse. Because little kids do this thing where their eyes get really wide, and they open their mouth and scream without any self-consciousness and run, and it's really funny from afar. Much like someone getting a hit in the head with a paint can is funny from afar. Not your head. And you were
Is it though?
And I feel like Cindy was even less impressed that.
Did Cindy like that story?
Oh no, Cindy was not a fan of either one of you for several weeks after that. Like, I couldn't mention your names in casual conversation.
No, we've turned that around.
The best kids that age, like my kids are just at the age where when I'm laughing at something they say, they think that I'm trying to embarrass them. Like before, I could laugh openly and they'd just be like, "What's funny, Hetty?" And I'll say "you," and they're fine. But now they understand that like they don't want to be the butt of a joke. So I feel like if he was 4, he probably didn't know. He was mostly just scared. He didn't give a shit that 2 old men were laughing at him.
Maybe. It might have been the year before. He might have been even younger. I don't know. I thought that was, I mean, it was definitely Project Comicon, though.
Well, I only went to that show one time.
Oh, well, that's the one where you scared him then. It was the one that was in, like, the rec center with, like, a swimming pool and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And we went to like a Chinese restaurant afterward.
I don't remember going to a Chinese restaurant.
And they had the sauce, the special sauce.
I don't remember that at all.
Dennis, do you remember that?
Is that the one where you showed Howard Chaykin Hob Kebabs and he said I was a fucking idiot because I didn't know how to write a telephone conversation?
Maybe.
Same show.
That's funny. I remember that, but that's not what I remember from it. But of course it is what you would take from it.
Every time I write a telephone conversation now, I remember you coming back to the table and telling me that Howard Chaykin thinks I'm a fucking idiot. And so I'm sure to show each person on the first page of its phone conversation in a comic, I was scripted so that each person on either side of the phone is in that one page, so it's not confusing. Because once upon a time, Howard Chaykin called me an idiot.
That might be the case.
What was your takeaway?
My takeaway is you guys didn't invite me to Chinese restaurant with special sauce.
I don't think I went to that either. I don't remember that.
I think he did. It was Tony and Kara and the Somnies were there, and Kevin was there, and I'm pretty sure you were there.
But not me. Cast out for your other friends.
That was after Planet one year. I remember that, but that was in Kansas City.
Oh, okay.
At Chinese restaurant. Yeah, I remember that.
I remember going to dinner with all those people at Kansas City one time. Is where I met Dennis. He says it's not, but that's where I met him.
You met me at HurleyCon.
Was that?
No, you met me when I bought your book and you pretended like you wanted my feedback and then you ignored me whenever I sent you an email. But that was, I understand that. Like I've always hated you.
That's how Dennis learned to ignore people when you ask him for feedback.
You didn't understand, but I was very much teaching you a lesson.
Well, what's funny is I've hated you for that forever. But I was telling that story to someone the other day, and it occurred to me.
How often do you tell this story?
Well, you are a big part of my life, so you come up a lot. So when I talk about you, I tell that story. But I realized that I've been still angry about it for years past the point that I understood you will say anything to someone you're selling a comic book to at a con.
That's not 100% true. That's not 100% true. I
was a customer who was telling you that I was an aspiring comic book creator and that I had a book coming out and that I had heard your book was really good and you were selling me the book. And then you said, let me know what you think of it. Like, you're a writer. I'd really love to know what you think of it. And you say that, you mean it on some level, but you didn't remember my fucking face the moment I turned and walked away.
But did he say, let me know what you think of it and I'll respond to you?
No, but that was implied in my head because I didn't get that he had talked to 150 people in that day, like I didn't get that yet because I wasn't at that point in my career yet. But I didn't give you that pass until like a week ago. And this happened like 10 years ago.
You hated me up until a week ago?
I hated you for that. We have a complicated relationship.
Wow, what a jackass. Me, I was the jackass.
No, you were fine.
I did mean it. Let me know what you think about it. I just didn't know you were going to want to talk and cuddle and stuff.
Say that to everybody. I think most people, when you sell them a book, because I've been next to you a few times at cons, and I'm pretty sure you tell everybody to let you know what they think of it.
How often do they actually do it?
First of all, I get a lot of people who will let me know what they think. First of all, I think being next to me at a convention is probably the most annoying thing ever.
I got beef jerky this year.
Yeah, you did get beef. It was a Slim Jim. It wasn't a beef jerky.
Slim Jim is a variety of beef jerky.
Now, hold on. No. Slim Jim and beef jerky are very different.
They're in the same snack category, but I'll agree that they're different.
Yes, they're both meat, but they're not the same.
Dennis, do you remember when we used to drive down to, I think it was the HurleyCon, and I think the first year we went with Kevin Mellon. I like your optical illusion there. The first year we went with Kevin Mellon, and we stopped along the way, and I bought a 6-foot-long Slim Jim called a whippersnacker.
Yes, you did.
And we never ate it because it was a prize to us. It was a wonderful object, and I don't know exactly what happened at the HurleyCon, but I do remember we came back to Planet Comicon. Tony Moore was a guest, and I remember he had his table covered because the show had ended. He covered his table, and the next morning he had a long line of people because he had to stand in line to get on his commission list. And Tony was running a little bit late. But we went over before anybody got there, and we hid the 6-foot whippersnacker under his cover. And so he came in 15 or 20 minutes late, and the people who'd been waiting for an hour were a little bit irritated at him. And he pulled away the blanket and was confronted by this whippersnacker. And I enjoy it.
So then he walked away from those people to come talk to us about the whippersnacker.
Yeah.
Do they still make
I learned all of my
Do they still
social
make
cues from watching.
whippersnackers?
What?
Do they still make whippersnackers?
Who knows if they ever did?
Yeah, for all we know, that was a joke that was played on us by the owners of that one gas station.
The best thing I've ever seen at a gas station, and it was one of those giant truck stops that claims to be the biggest in the region. They had a Klingon batleth for I think $60 or $80, and had the show gone better, I would have purchased that Klingon batleth.
You didn't even have to say the rest of that sentence. I knew it for sure.
I'm pretty sure most of those big truck stops have one of those Klingon batleths.
You think so?
I feel like I've seen them. I feel like I've seen them at those kind of places.
I mean, they
The
sell
worst
a
thing
lot
that
of
ever
shitty
happened to me at a
replicas,
convention
sports and
happened
knives.
at one of those places.
Say what?
Say that again.
The worst thing that ever happened at one of those truck stops.
Do tell.
It was a
To
night.
you or
It was
period?
to me. It was a night just like tonight. I don't know if it was the worst thing, but it was pretty humiliating for me, and it changed how I conduct myself at rest stops and gas stations as a whole.
I can't wait.
I was
Wait, before you tell your story, Cullen,
yes.
this is going to be a good story.
Yeah, it's an okay story.
Where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at my website, cullenbunn.com. You can find me at Twitter at Cullen Bunn, or Patreon is Cullen Bunn as well.
Dennis, where can they find you?
Hopeless Dent on Twitter, or you can just Google Dennis Hopeless on Twitter. Twitter search Dennis Hopeless on Twitter. And then I'm running our TikTok, so Missouri Swagger at TikTok.
And you can find me on Instagram, @KyleStrahm_, and you can find me on Patreon under Kyle Strahm. And now, Cullen, please tell us the story of the worst thing that ever happened to you.
I probably oversold it, but it did change how I behave at rest stops and gas stations. So I was going to a convention with my friend Josh Roberts, friend of the show, and my younger brother was staying with me at the time, so he went to the convention with me as well.
How many brothers do you have?
I have one full brother. I have 3 to 4 half brothers and 1 half sister.
So is this the brother we've met?
You met my brother, yes.
And
So
this
did
is
this
the brother.
happen really recently?
What's that?
Did this happen like last year?
Yeah, what happened last year.
Okay.
Oh.
So because we were taking a ton of books to this convention, I took my wife's car. It just holds more than my Jeep. And there's this thing with my wife's car that I didn't know why it was doing this, but the check engine light is always coming on. And no one can get it. I can take it to the shop. They'll get it to go off. It comes back on a few days later. It's been that way since it was brand new. But I think I figured out it's something to do. I figured out what is causing the check engine light to come on. Anyway, when I go to a gas station, we were getting ready to leave. I go to a gas station. I put the nozzle in. I turn it on, set the little clicker, and I go in and shop and come back out and take it out, and I'm done, right? So I did that. I start pumping gas, go into the gas station. My brother goes running off. Who knows what the hell he was doing. And Josh is going and getting snacks. We're getting road snacks, stuff to get on the road. We were in there for a few minutes. And as I was standing in line, I was behind someone in line. And Josh, I think, was behind me to pay. This guy comes running in the front door. And he goes, "Shut the pumps off! Shut the pumps off! Somebody, some motherfucker left this car out there pumping gas, and gas is going everywhere." And I just knew in my heart of hearts that they were talking about me. And I kind of stood there for a second, very proud. And I turned to Josh and I handed him my snacks and said, "Pay for these, would you, Josh? I'll be right back." And then I strolled outside, and sure enough, there was gas pouring everywhere from my car. I mean, the parking lot was a swamp of gasoline. It was completely covered every part of the parking lot. And I walked out and somebody goes, "Is that your car?" And I went, "Nope." And then I walked right to it, hopped in. Oh, I took the gas pump out and I put it. What happened is the reason my check engine light is there's a fuel sensor in there that's supposed to cut off when it gets to a certain point, and it doesn't do that in that car apparently. And I walked up, put the gas pump in, and said, "I took care of it, everybody." And then I ran around the back, jumped in the car,
and you lit a cigarette.
Yeah. Oh, I smelled so strongly of gasoline, it was ridiculous. Because I was standing in this much gasoline as I walked to the car. And Josh comes out, and I pull up to the sidewalk. And Josh comes out, and he's like, and he gets in the car, and my brother comes out, and he goes, "Is that us?" And I said, "Yeah." I go, "I'm nodding," and he goes, "Let's get the fuck out of here." And I sped out, spinning my wheels, gasoline going everywhere, flying up out from under the car. And I was very humiliated and angry about it for a while. Because first of all, that cost me a lot of money. I mean, it was a lot of cash on that card. But second of all, it's never happened to me before. But that's why it's changed my approach to gas. Even no matter what car I'm in, I don't set the handle and walk into the store anymore. I always wait for it to pump before I go in the store. Maybe I was supposed to do that all along, but I didn't realize it.
No, the technology makes it so that you don't have to.
Well, not there.
Faulty technology.
But yeah.
My favorite part of that story is that I assume it was a busy gas station with a lot of people.
Oh, it was very busy.
And none of those motherfuckers walked over and stopped the gas line.
Yeah.
Like that guy's reaction.
Nobody bothered. I stopped it. It was still pouring out of the gas tank. When I walked up, it was like gushing out of it.
That guy's reaction was to walk inside and say, "Turn off the pumps," instead of doing it himself with his hand. I mean, he would have covered his hand in gas, so I guess he just decided
at that point, pretty much everybody was covered in gas.
So we went to C2E2. I carpooled with Valdemar and Matt Mitchell and Buster Moody, maybe. Anyway, on the Sunday after the show, we were driving back to Missouri, and I was driving, and I was very tired, and I didn't know at the time I was sick as a dog. I was getting sick, and I was feeling a little weird, but we stopped at a gas station, and we were taking turns filling it up, because that's what you do when you're on a trip like that. So somebody filled it up while I went in, and then they came in and they were like, "It's done." And I said, "Great." And so I paid for my stuff and went out and got in the car, and I thought, "Oh, they're going to come out. I'll pull up to them." So I pulled up, but what I didn't know was the thing was still in the car, and it yanked it off of the pump, and a trickle of gas started coming down. And I thought, "Oh, shit." So I ran inside. I was very apologetic, and they seemed like it happens all the time. It was still very shameful and funny to those I was with. But once we got back in the car, I was like, "Okay, well, we got to go over there." And I drove, and those parking lots, they have like a weird curb that comes out like sort of like a peninsula curb that just goes out into the lot. And I just drove over that, clunk, 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 and stopped and said, "Maybe I shouldn't be driving right now." So one of those two guys drove instead.
It's the worst thing in the world when something stupid has happened and you know you're going to look foolish, but the only thing that you can do is tell someone who you wish didn't need to know the stupid thing that has happened. Yeah, that when I was 16, I stole my friend's girlfriend. Like, she broke up with him for me, and he came over and saw us making out in my bedroom. Like,
I think she made a choice. I don't think he stole her.
Yeah, but I mean, from his perspective, we were hanging out because I was his friend. Anyway, it's a mistake. But so he came to the door furious and walked out and was freaking out. And I went out with my hands up and was like, I'm not going to fight you if you want to fight me. And he proceeded to punch me in the nose. And the reason my nose is so fucking crooked, if you've ever noticed, is because, yeah, he like laid me out with a punch. And my sinuses filled up with blood, and my nose was, I mean, it was even worse. This is definitely rebroken. It was laying over to the side, and I had to go to the emergency room and answer the question to the admitting nurse of what had happened. And I said, I got punched in the face. My friend punched me in the face, and everybody laughed. And then I had to keep telling that story. And every time I told the story about how I got punched in the face, everyone would laugh at me. In hindsight, now I realize I could have just said I got hit in the face. I didn't have to make it clear that I had lost a fight.
I don't think you lost a fight. You chose not to fight.
You didn't fight. You got punched.
Yes, but when I told my father that story, my father said, I don't care what you've done. I don't care if you've killed somebody. I don't care if you've run over somebody's dog. If someone wants to hit you in the face, you do not let them. And if they do hit you in the face, you hit them back. So
yeah, my dad was the same way.
I'm not sure that either of your dads had everything figured out.
No, well, no dad does. The worst thing, the time I feel like I let my dad down the most was at the Wayne County Fair when I wasn't driving yet, so I had to be maybe 13, 14 years old. I don't know.
Well, it's easy to disappoint someone at the Wayne County Fair.
Well, and what happens is, you get there and your parents just say, "Go have fun, boys." And
the most disappointing place on earth.
Yeah, me and my buddy run off and we just go have fun for several hours, and we meet back up at 10 o'clock or whenever the fireworks go, and that's when my dad picks us up and goes home. And we went to the fun house, and the fun house had, it was just, the tunnel you walk through, and then up at the top, they had this walkway that was like a catwalk that overlooked the fairgrounds, and it had these 3 spinning discs, and you could stand on them and they'd spin you around, The idea is they make you a trip as you walk by, but we were standing on them and spinning around. And this kid comes up behind us, he was older than us. He came up and he says, "Get out of my way!" And he pushes both of us. And we hit up against the rail. We were in no real danger, but we hit the rail and he goes walking on. And I remember as I hit the rail, I looked out. And as I look out across the crowd, my dad was standing in the crowd looking back up at us. And I was like, oh, he saw me get pushed. That's horrible. And then we left. Then we got out of the fun house. And as I walk up to where my dad was, he was standing there and he had his hand on that boy's shoulder. And he was, and he says, "Cullen, come here." And I walk up, and my dad says, "I want you to hit him as hard as you can in the stomach." And the guy's like, "Don't hit me, man. Don't hit me. Don't hit me." He's like, "Please don't hit me." And I was like, "I don't want to hit him. I don't want to hit you. I don't want to hit. I don't want to do it. I don't want to hit him." And my dad let him go, and the guy goes running off. And my dad never spoke of it again. In all our time throughout history, he never mentioned it again. But I looked at him when he let that kid go, and he was so disappointed that I didn't hit that kid in the stomach. And I feel like that was the most I've ever let my dad down, was in that moment.
And I quote, "I've been lobbying to get rid of the swagger stories because I'm all out of swagger stories." Cullen Bunn, like 6 weeks ago.
That's a super sad. That's
fucking
like
swagger story.
There's no swagger to that.
You're full of them. You're full of bursting swagger.
I think you made the right decision, Cullen.
I should have just put. And you know what? If I saw some kid push my son in a funhouse, I would be very tempted to do the same thing my dad did.
Well, that's the lesson you learned, and then your son would make the right choice too.
Well, first of all, if you push my kid, you're going to get your ass whooped, because that kid will whoop an ass. I can't even go up and grab him playing. He'll hook around, spin, kick me twice. You don't do that.
Well, he knows karate. You didn't know karate.
I did not know karate. I knew I got pushed, and I knew I let my dad down.
Well, see, what your dad did is accidentally shame you. Like, he was trying to give you an opportunity to get your revenge, but really it just made you feel bad a second time.
Yeah, it made me feel bad. I wish he hadn't seen it. If he hadn't seen it, I wouldn't remember that moment. I wouldn't remember getting pushed in the fun house if my dad hadn't seen it, and that would have been great too.
You got a good story out of it.
I guess. It feels weird. But my dad didn't let anybody pick on his kids or his family. So
no, he didn't. I remember once I had a birthday party, and there was a kid named Mike who did not get invited to the birthday party because I guess I didn't like him. I don't know, but he lived in the neighborhood, and while the party was going on, found a mouse and cut a circle out of its guts and like put it on our porch. And I remember us finding it and thinking it must be Mike. And my dad was like, well, if Mike comes around here, he's going to wish he hadn't come around here. And that was maybe the only time I remember my dad being like that. But a similar story where I was on the other side of, a different kid named Mike and I were not invited to a pool party a couple of blocks away. And I remember our friend Matt was, and we concocted this plan that we would sneak over, and the pool had a fence around it, of course, a wooden fence. The backyard did. And our friend Matt gathered up all the soda from the party and like put it in his hoodie and tied it shut. And we snuck over, and he passed it over the fence. And so we ran off with all the soda. And then we must have gone back, because I remember that kid's dad seeing us and coming and confronting us and saying, what are you doing here?
I like the idea that you and Mike were like, let's go back and see how thirsty they are.
This kid that I got my nice elementary school and high school with, but he's a real asshole. It's like a sort of a meaner Zack Morris kind of character who got away with murder and just was kind of a prick. But we went and played football, like supposed to be touch football, at his house one day, and it sort of devolved into tackle football. And I remember at one point, somebody got hurt, or somebody hit too hard, and was pissed off about it. His dad came outside and said that it is not my responsibility to solve the problems of children. If you guys need to fight this out, you fight it out. I'm gonna look the other way. And then he paused and came back around and said, and if any of your parents have any thoughts on that they want to share with me, tell them to save it and don't send you over here anymore. And I found out years later, he was the principal of a school district, like not our school district, but a different one. And I think he spent so many hours a week dealing with parents' bullshit that the last thing he wanted to do was have some sort of talk. And that's also why Matt was an asshole, I'm sure, because his dad told him just punch it out. There's a problem.
My dad always told us, all the kids, that if you ever get in trouble at school and they're going to spank you or, paddle you or whatever, which I guess they don't do that at school anymore. But back when I was in school, they sure as fuck did.
It might be frowned upon.
He used to tell us if ever they were going to paddle you, that we were supposed to walk. We don't stay at school. Don't let them touch you. That he would punish us if we deserved punishment, but nobody else. Nobody else was to touch his kids. It never happened for me. My younger brother walked out of school because they were going to paddle him, and he's like, "Nope, I'm leaving," and he walked.
Sounds like a free pass to get out of school. Just come home and be like,
"I was going to get paddled." I was defending the helpless, and they.
My dad's favorite story about my grandfather, about his father, was that when the dad was like 8 years old, and he was the oldest kid of 5 boys. So there was an 8-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and then like a 4-year-old and 3-year-old. So dad was the oldest, he was only 8, and they had a babysitter. And my grandfather was a problematic figure for a variety of reasons, but they were not allowed to go in their parents' bedroom at all. Like it was completely off limits to ever set foot through the threshold of the master bedroom, and they knew it. And they had some babysitter who was paid to watch them over the summer or something. And she needed the boys, God only knows, there were 5 children of those ages that she needed admitted. And so she sent them into the bedroom, and my dad had said, we're not allowed in there. Like, this is breaking the rule. Absolutely not. We're not allowed in there. And she had put him in there anyway, and he fought her, and apparently some sort of altercation took place. And so when my grandfather came home, the babysitter had said, like, I tried to put them in the bedroom and they had a fit. And my grandfather fired the babysitter on the spot, told her to get the fuck out of his house, and like rules are rules for hers too. Then spanked all the children. My dad got spanked because he broke the rule. He went into the bedroom even though he wasn't supposed to. And then from then on out, my dad was the babysitter. So from 8 years old, he was the one, because at that point my grandfather didn't trust anybody else to uphold the rules. So my dad was somehow now responsible for his.
Well, he tried to obey the rule.
I love that he got spanked anyway. Like an adult forced him to do a thing. He fought against it to the point that he got in trouble. Still got spanked, which explains everything about how my dad's mind worked.
Mm-hmm. When I was in kindergarten, there was a kid named John Whitmore, and he misbehaved, and the teacher tied him to his desk so that he wouldn't get up and cause a ruckus. But I don't think that would fly today either.
I can't imagine that going over very well.
It was with that plasticky yellow rope.
That
Kid
stuff
named-
scratches.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a comfortable thing to be tied up. But there was a kid named Scott. I don't remember his last name. It was Scott. I guess we shouldn't be telling stories of people's full names. Anyway.
I don't think John Whitmore is listening.
No, but somebody else might be. Anyway, this kid named Scott was a behavioral problem kid when I was in 3rd grade. And he caused major problems. He refused to listen to the lesson plan. He'd sit in the back and read Stephen King books when he was supposed to be doing stuff. She sent him to the office. Instead of going to the office, he would march around in the sinks. Like they'd catch him like standing, like walking across the sinks in the bathroom and all this trouble. And one day at recess, he just told all of us, he's like, I'm going to the titty bar. And he takes off down the road and heads toward there's a strip club, like, I don't know, the next town over past hours, but it was only a quarter mile away. And all the teachers freak out, and the principal hops in the car and goes chasing after this kid. And my teacher was a couple years from retirement. She, Miss Wiggins was her name. She's definitely dead now. And she hated this kid. It was very obvious that she hated this kid. And after that incident where he took off the school grounds, they moved him from her classroom into one of the other 3rd grade classrooms. So the next day, the day that it took place, we came back from recess or music class or something, and the little window, you know how that those vertical windows set into the wooden door where you could see through, but the rest of the door was wood. That window was covered with construction paper. And we sat down, and Miss Wiggins said, "We're going to have a donut party. We'll have a celebration. But first, I want you guys to tell me, why do you think that the glass is covered up?" And we're like, "I don't think we get it cracked. Like, or did you want it to have dark?" So those are all good guesses. But no, it's that Scott is no longer in my class. And when he walks by, every time he peers his ugly little face in through that window. And he's not going to do that anymore. So today we're celebrating that we don't have to see Scott's ugly little face
Oh my God.
anymore. And we had a donut party. And then Miss Wiggins suddenly retired early at semester, and we had a new teacher for the second half of the
I bet you did. Because one of you little 3rd grade snitches went and told on him.
And we got donuts. That's what I thought was. Why would anybody tell on her? We got donuts. Also, Scott's a pain in the ass. Yeah.
Funny.
Bunch of snitches.
So I've been working on this. I drew some designs, and I had this minifigure sculpted based on my designs.
Oh,
It was sculpted by Michael Adams, who did the 3D action figure covers for Spread that we did a while back. And now this is getting printed, and it's going to get cast, and I'll be able to have a whole bunch of them.
Let me see if you can hold it up again. I want to look at that thing.
And I'll send Anton the turnaround, the design.
Oh, that's awesome.
Is that for your upcoming project?
No, this is just a thing I designed.
That's cool.
Standalone. And he comes with a toothbrush.
Well, he needs it.
He does. He's got a lot of teeth. Look at him. Look at those.
Choppers. What's that? What's his name?
Proto-tooth.
Prototooth.
You got some Band-Aids.
It looks like last night I pulled a book out to read my kids. They wanted a bedtime story, but they wanted one they hadn't read before. And I have a stack of Lionforge Cub books or whatever, like their kids line, and a lot of them are translated like French stories and stuff from other countries. And I've never opened or read any of them, but as long as there's Cub on the side, I know it's appropriate. I read in this thing last night that's like half storybook, half comic book and has these gorgeous illustrations, and it'll shift perspectives. Like one of the kids is pretending he's a robot, so when he sees everything, it all goes to like full painted renderings and everything's a robot and it's beeps and boops and shit. This is really pretty and the art's really cool, but when you read a story to 5-year-olds, they want you to explain everything. I have no fucking clue what was happening for almost the entire book, because it's basically 3 little kids wander into the woods and then their imaginations run wild. And the woods is also like a place where it's like this fairy tale had taken place. So nothing that's happening makes any sense, and it keeps shifting perspectives, and it's really cool looking crazy. But I spent about an hour and a half trying to explain something that, number one, I had not yet finished, so I did not know why what was happening, and also it was really difficult to follow.
You got to be careful with those damn stories of kids going off in the woods where their imagination takes flight, because you could get yourself into a Bridge to Terabithia situation very easily.
What do you mean?
Bridge to Terabithia, are you familiar? You're familiar with Bridge to Terabithia, aren't you?
I'm aware that it exists, and I know they made a movie. I haven't seen it.
It's a story about this little boy makes a friend, and they go off in the woods, and it's a kingdom of magic and wonder and giants and fairies, and it's awesome. And then this little friend drowns, and it's awful.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried about that. I was like, oh, it's possible that there's going to be death and destruction.
And the fantasy is over. She's dead.
That's it. Yeah.
It's ghastly. It's ghastly.
There's a moment in this where this giant, they called it a sheep, but it looks like a giant puffball with big, scary teeth, realizes that one of the boys has the hat that's the crown that makes him the king of the forest or whatever. And so it eats the little boy. And the little boy goes inside the sheep's belly. And then there's like gas monsters in there that are attacking him, and he starts to be digested, and he's all chopped up. And then all of a sudden, the side of the sheep is ripped open, and you see like ribs sticking out, and hand reaches in and pulls it out. And the kids are like, those are his ribs, and they're freaking out. I'm like, that's not really his ribs. He didn't really just get ripped apart. But yeah, he did. It's pretty gory. Fortunately, the end was happy. They wandered out, and their parents they'd only been gone for a few minutes. It's fine. Well,
I've prepared you for Bridge to Terabithia, which they will make your children read in school. And just let them know it ain't a happy ending. Them fairies and elves and giants and shit can't help that little girl from drowning.
I mean, we read Old Yeller and stuff.
And that was awful too.
You're going to be sad sometimes, Tom.
The good
Lord of the Flies, that was pretty bad, but that starts out bad and it just gets worse.
I read an interesting article about these kids about 2 or 3 years before Lord of the Flies came out. There were some kids who were trying to leave this school, and they stole one of the teacher's boats, and they went out on the boat without anything, and they crashed on an island, and they were there for like 18 months. And it was the closest thing to what would actually happen if a Lord of the Flies situation occurred. But the kids were fine, and they set up some rules right at the beginning that made it clear that they would not be terrible to each other. And honestly, they would have died, except they found this valley that was full of chickens.
It was called Chick-fil-A.
And then they got picked up 18 months later.
They were on an island. When did this happen?
In like 68 or something like that. Lord of the Flies, when did that come out?
I don't know, 60s.
I think Lord of the Flies was like 68 and 69, 70.
So it happened around that time?
Right before, yeah.
I feel like in the 60s, it would have been hard to get lost on an island. If you're just a kid and you get on a boat. Where was this island?
I don't have the details. I'll send you the article.
I saw an article today about 3 little kids who let themselves get bit by a black widow spider because they thought it would give them Spider-Man powers.
Yeah, how'd that work out for them?
They're okay, but they were in excruciating pain for a week or whatever it is.
Have you ever been bitten by a very poisonous spider or snake?
No. I've been around a lot of poisonous snakes and spiders, but I've never been bitten by one of them.
If I got bitten by any snake, like I'm so deathly afraid of snakes that if I got bitten by any snake, I would have to be institutionalized for upwards of 6 months. Like I would not be able to sleep. I wouldn't be able to think of anything else. Like I'm so irrationally terrified of snakes that is scarier than that. Even like a garter snake, something I know won't kill me. I would
It wouldn't hurt very bad.
Snakes don't bother me in the least.
I mean, I'm not going to go around them because I'm ignorant of which ones are terrible and which ones aren't.
Yeah.
Well, we lived by a creek when I was a kid, and my mom had lived there with her parents before. Like, we bought the house from my grandparents, and because it was so close to the body of water, snakes would get up inside the garage. So when you go down to do laundry in the basement, there'd just be like snakes laying in front of you. And so my mother is deathly afraid of snakes. And she would, when I was a kid, she would scream and yell if there was a snake, and my dad would come out and chop its head off with a shovel or whatever. And so it was like bred into me to be afraid of snakes. And I've told the toilet snake story on here before, but
yeah,
might have had something to do with it too.
Have you ever watched that show Infested?
No.
Nope, I don't like the sound of it.
Yeah, there's one where their property is infested with snakes, and the guy can't figure out why the drinking water tastes weird, and it's because there are snakes living in the tank, and it's like snake waste coming through their shower and their drinking water.
I guess I should tell the snake. New people who haven't heard the early episode where I told the snake toilet story. When my father was in a near fatal car accident when I was 3 years old, and while we were living in a small trailer off of my grandfather's land was when the accident happened. So we lived there for a bit, and the trailer was connected to a shitty backwoods septic tank of some sort. And my dad had brain damage and would say crazy shit because he wasn't himself yet. And one day he walked naked out of the bathroom and told my mom that one of the turds in the toilet was staring at him.
Oh.
My dad was like, or my mom said, no, go back in there and start clean yourself up. That's not happening. And he wouldn't, like, he refused to go back in until she looked at the turd that was staring at him. So my mom goes in, and sure enough, there's this giant black snake poking its head up out of the toilet water looking around. And so what happened is my grandfather and some of his friends came over, and they removed the toilet. And when they pulled it up, the entire plumbing stack was just full of snakes that were all twisted up through there because they had somehow gotten into the septic tank and it had gotten too full, and they were trying to escape. So they had to like pull the toilet up and then chop through the snakes with a machete in order to remove the toilet and clean out the plumbing stack. So that might have something to do with the fact that everyone in my family.
That would scare. That would probably haunt me.
Horrible. That was one snake. That was he got out though. He got to see a little bit of the world.
He's like the sperm that made it all the way to the egg.
It's not like that at all.
He's the fastest swimmer. It's real similar.
I'm sure that the last time you told that toilet snake story, I told this story, but I have a couple of, I've been around snakes all my life. Listen, my dad used to take a trash can lid. Well, he did it once. He took this trash can lid and he found a copperhead, and he put it in the trash can lid, and he built a ramp for us to jump over it in our go-kart. And we felt like Evel Knievel jumping sharks. We'd jump over that.
Was it a poisonous snake?
Yes, copperhead. Two things. I'll make them very quick. My dad used to do fundraising for volunteer fire departments and churches and stuff like that. And he would go, and he would often take us to these meetings to try to pitch his services. And he took me to one at a church where they passed snakes around.
It's a Pentecostal snake handlers.
Poisonous?
What's that?
The snakes were poisonous?
Well, in theory, some people have said they've been de-venomized or whatever at certain places. But
by faith?
Yeah. And the other one, I lived on this street. It was a 2-lane paved street. Woods on this side, woods on this side. When you walk down the street, there's 2 areas of woods. And my brother and I were walking down the street one day, and we looked up in front of us, and there was a snake crossing the street. Its head was off the road on this side. Its tail had yet to enter the road on this side, 2-lane street, and it was still going. This was some sort of prehistoric beast, and it was just slithering across the road. And I'm sure it wasn't it didn't take as long as it seemed, but it seemed to take a good 15 to 20 seconds for that snake to finish going across the road. And we played in those woods all the time. And it wasn't a black snake, because I know what a black snake looks like. So I don't know what kind of snake it was.
What does a black snake look like?
Black.
I was looking for.
At Harper's Ferry, which is like the Civil War site, where they do reenact. Basically, they live like they did during this time. We went. My parents took us to visit, and we were sitting under a tree, and this giant, like 8-foot long black snake just comes slithering down out of the tree, and everybody's like, "Oh!" and they all run, and this lady in a bonnet and like an old timey homespun dress is like, "Don't hurt him! Everybody leave him alone. That's our snake. He takes care of the rats for us." And he just slithered down. He slithered around all these people, and he just went up into an old barn and slithered away. And she was like, "That snake's lived here longer than any of us." I was like, "All right, whatever."
Last time I was in New Orleans, we did a swamp tour, and they took us around and fed marshmallows to crocodiles or alligators or whatever they are. They tell you not to touch the trees. There's trees that hang down, and because the snakes will get coiled up in the branches, and it'll knock the snake down. And the guy was probably like 6'6", 350 pounds, like he was born, in the bayou and wasn't afraid of anything. He told us not to touch that. He's like, "I mean, you keep your hands in the boat." He's like, "I'll wrestle a gator for any one of you. I'll do it all day long. But the moment a snake hits that boat, you're on your fucking own. You're going to see my big ass running across that water." That's awesome.
The rest of the way, Dennis is like, "Come here, snakes."
No, I had my arms. I was sitting on my hands for the rest of it. Fuck that.
So, Cullen, did you see on that Predator game that you played one time, today, you can play as Arnold Schwarzenegger?
What?
Yeah.
Just today?
No, starting today. But they brought him in to record they actually brought Arnold in to record a bunch of dialogue.
All right. I guess I haven't played any games in weeks. I just haven't been up to it. But that does sound awesome.
Well, like we always say, we should play the Predator game.
Have you guys been playing it a lot?
Not a lot, but every once in a while.
Can you just play and practice? Because I need a lot of practice.
Mm-hmm. But really, you just play with us, and if you stick together, then you do pretty well.
Yeah, but I'm a lot like that guy on the boat. If a snake gets thrown in, as soon as the predator jumps into our area, I'm like, "I'm out!"
All right, guys, we made it through another one. We're going to do better next time. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
See ya.
We have something that gets added somewhere. I don't know.